Right, welcome to episode 15, I think it is, of the multi-language adventure game. This is the C# version, and we are writing an item class and creating some item objects for the game. So let me just run it through so you can see what to expect. So if we hit the start button, no, we don't want to disable debug, so we'll hit N for that. And this time, as you can see, we've got the dictionary shared items contains the following objects. So we've got a key card, which is of type item, a magnetic strip. These are the descriptions of them. So these are 4 item objects we have created from an item class. I'll press enter to continue, and then it will continue as it does normally, so I won't bother to go through that. It was just to show you this new bit. So obviously the first thing we needed is a new class, which is the item class. So we'll show you that. Now this is not a static class, it's a full proper class that you can make objects from. So it doesn't have the word static in it, and otherwise it behaves pretty much the same. We don't need, it would appear, some of those usings, so we'll get rid of the ones that we don't need. Okay, I usually like a space between that. Right, so we've got this internal class called item, and it has basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. Now these are all auto properties, where you've got the public string name, and the get set here means that we can refer to all of these properties directly from outside of the class. If we had wanted it so that we can get them but not set them, then we would just delete the appropriate set here. So this is very similar. If I just drag in the Python one here of, there we go. So we've got in Python item class, we had this property at property name and at name setter name. So we've got the properties being given the same def name, except one of them gets what the value of the underlying variable is, and this one sets what the value of the underlying variable is. So the way I've written this is very straightforward and lazy. I haven't used any kind of private underlying variables. I've just declared and gone straight into these getters and setters. So we can refer to any of them using the dot notation outside, which we shall see shortly. And that's basically all the class does. There is no, because we're using these auto properties, we don't need to have any functions down here that either get the name description or set the name description. It's all built in. So here's the constructor. So it passes in the name description, a string of craft items, uses, and a container. The purpose of those is obviously the name would be the name of the item, the description is what it says. The idea of the craft items is if at a later stage we wanted to be able to make an item from other items, this would tell you what items are required, and then you can have like a crafting session. Uses would be something like if you had a key, you might want to use it once and then the key would disappear and it could be removed from the list of items. A container is where if you had an item that was a container, such as a chest, you could put something inside that container. So if we made a torch here and its initial starting place was inside a chest, then we would put the name of that other item that contains it here. So again, we're not using these at the moment in this game. Let's go to what has been changed. We'll go to Program CS. So play hasn't changed, main hasn't changed, no, so that's pretty much all the same as it was. The game CS, we've now filled in the add to items function here. That's now got something in it. And we've also added this create default items. So if I just drop that out of the way just to give us a bit more space. So create default items, and that's the lines that will create 4 items here. We'll go through this by stepping through it in a moment. So display intro was already there, format line was there. So our load game is as before, clears the console, lists our characters, and then we've got this new one in here, create default items. That wasn't there before. Then it runs through displaying the introduction and modifying the player as we did last time. So it's really only this create default items that we need to look through today. So I'll put a stop sign in there and we'll run that and see what it gets to. So do I want to disable debug node? No. And we're at create default item. So let's press F11. So we're going to create these 4 items by calling the add to items one, which is up here. So let's step through and do at least one of them. So F11. So add to items, and we're passing it the name, keycard, and then the description, a magnetic strip keycard, property of Premiere ins. So we'll hit F11, and that's taking us up to the add to items thing here. And there's the name, keycard, there's the description, craft items is null, uses is naught, and container is an empty string. So we press F11, and then it's going to add a new item to the list by using the shared items, which is, it's off screen at the moment, but shared items is a dictionary within the shared folder, shared class. So we're going to add to that dictionary. So and then it will add this new item. So if I press F11, it's now calling the item class. Here's the constructor. So if we press F11 and just step through, it's giving these default values to each of the items. So they've now been given the default value of empty string, craft items is an empty list, uses is naught, container empty string. And now we're going to overwrite these values from the constructor. So we've now got the keycard instead of an empty string, magnetic strip keycard instead of description. We've still got null in there. So let's press F11. So we've got name, description, craft items, uses, and container. So craft items is been returned back to null. What might have been an idea, no, we're not using craft items, so don't concern yourselves. But what we can do is that you can put a little if statement that if craft items equals null, is not equal to null, then you'll change its value. Otherwise, leave it at its default new list string. But it's not, we're not really using it now, so it doesn't matter. So we've now got our name, description, craft items null, uses 0, and container empty string. So that those have been created. So that's our first item. So let's press F11. So we've added that one to it. So now if I hover my mouse over shared items, you'll see it says count equals 1, and I can press the button down, and then it's showing me that the first one is a keycard adventure to items.item, which is the class. If I press the second of these drop downs, you can see that the key is keycard, and the value, if I drop down on the value, shows you the container empty string, craft items null, description, name, and uses. So this is where the C# debugging is infinitely better than Python and Lua, in that you can see absolutely everything right down to the base level of all the, see we're several kind of layers through here to see what you've actually got inside your dictionary of items there. So we're going to run through that. I'll let it run through naturally until we've created all the items. So let's put a stop sign there. Okay, so now if we go back up to our shared.items, you'll see that count is now 4, and I can drop that down. So we've got the 4 items, the key card, the torch, the book, and the key. So you could, of course, examine any one of those by going further down to its value until you get all the stuff that you want about it. So that's really useful. So shared debug is true. So now we're going to print out onto the console what the contents of the items dictionary is. So if we press F11, it's going to write out what the thing contains. There we go. The dictionary shared items contains the following objects. Then it will write out key name object description. So press F11 again. There we go. Key name object description. And then it's going to go write this UTF-8 character across the width of the window -1. Let's press F11 there. There we are. We've got this line across the window width -1. Otherwise it drops down and messes up the appearance. And then we're going to go through using the C# for each method. And because it's a dictionary, we have to use this key value pair of the string of the index of each item, then the item itself. So this is actually remarkably like the Lua version, which I've got here, where we did the description of the items. Let me just find that. That was in game. So in Lua we used for key, comma, value in pairs shared items do. So that has great similarities to the C# here. For each key value pair string item in shared items. So a great deal of similarity to the way this works. Let's just get that out of the way. So if I press the F11 key, well, it helps if I'm on the right thing here, press F11. So it's getting the shared items and it's finding the first key value pair in it. There we go. So if I hover over item, it tells me that it's a key card, and if I drop down, we can see the key is key card and the value is our actual object. Craft items nil, description, name, use is 0. So that's given us the full content of the key value pair item dot value here. So we're going to console write out the item key, which is key card, padded right by 10. Now this is a built-in function, which if you remember on the Lua version, we had kind of copied it, shared pad right. So this was kind of the Lua home brewed version of C#'s built-in pad right. So this will pad the key card to the right by 10 characters. So if I press F, make sure I'm in the right okay, press F11, and it'll write that out. So we can put, there we are, key card, and you can see the cursor is sitting here, which is 10 characters from the edge where it's been padded. And then it's now checking to see what kind of object is item.value. So we're using this if item.value is item. If I pass over this row, you'll see that the word item is in green like this, meaning that it's recognized as a class. So this is asking if the value is an item. So if I press F11, it is. So the value, item value, is indeed an item object. So it's going to write out the word item with pad right. Okay, so let's do that next. Press F11. There we go. And then we've got the word item in there. And now we're going to print out the description. So we press F11 there and bring that back in. Then we've got a magnetic strip keycard property of Premiere Ins. That's our description. And then it's going to go through all of the items in our dictionary, and then finally print out a double one of these UTF-8 characters line. So what I'll do is I'll press that. We'll press continue, and there you've got the full description of all the available items, and then it will ask me obviously to untick that, continue. It's asking me to enter to continue, and then it will carry on clearing the screen and doing all its stuff, which is what we did last time, so I won't bother to go through that. But I just wanted to show you how each item is created, how you can use the debug line here if you wish. So that's why that thing pops up at the beginning. So if I press start and I want to disable, yes, I will disable the debug mode. It will go straight, if I can remember to allow it to that, so we don't get shown the all the debug stuff. Okay, so I think that's covered that. I just see if there's anything else you need to look at with anything new. So in this one we have the create default items, which is those ones there. Then we then filled the add to items here. Display intro, that was not changed. Format line was not changed. So in the, yes, just adding this create default items in the load game was the only thing new there. So this is the game class. Program hadn't changed, narrator hasn't changed, player hasn't changed, shared, I don't think that's changed. No, that's fine. So that's pretty much covered everything for creating a few items. We're still not being able to walk around in our game yet, but I think that's coming up fairly shortly.